Hey guys, welcome to episode 72. 72, 73, which one? Of the VoiceOFpunk. I'm your host, VoiceOFpunk. So, I just finished watching the very last episode of Sons of Anarchy, the series finale, which was the 13th episode of season 7. The series finale entitled Papa's Goods. Now, I'd say for this being a series finale to a show that was very loud and explosive, this episode was actually very quiet, which was a interesting choice. I thought it was a interesting choice because it's just the show's reputation that for being a really violent show that it'll end on this kind of a quiet, peaceful note. Basically what this episode is about, this final episode, is basically, you could just sum this episode up as Jax's last day. It's basically all just the last day of Jackson Teller and him just redeeming himself in any way he can. I heard some complaints about this episode, and all the complaints I heard about this episode from fans, I understand their complaints, and I'm not going to say this was the best episode, because it really wasn't. It wasn't, well, one of the best episodes of the season or of the show, but I'd say for a finale and for an ending and for a conclusion, I was pretty happy with this. Because of course in the end, Jax dies, and he dies by his own hand, which I did like. I know some people did not like, and it's like there's a portion of people who didn't like that, but there's a huge portion that I'm a part of that do like that and thought it was very fitting. Basically, how Jax dies is he kills himself by riding on his dad's bike and going head on into a semi truck. It's like I'm still trying to not really compose myself, but just trying to register everything, Well, basically, how Jax got there was that, like, the episode opens with a really good montage and a really good song that is playing. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was sang by, I think it's a Bruce Springsteen song. And like Jax, he throws out his sneakers. He said, he looks at Abel. He says good morning to son Thomas. He takes one last look at the house. He puts on, I think, it's presumably his dad's boots. Puts on his dad's boots, takes one look around the house, one last look, and was like, I'm out of here. And he goes over to the storage unit, where in the very first episode of the series, that's where he found his father's manuscript, which set the course for the rest of the series. And he goes through the pictures, goes through the birth certificates and the death certificates and his own notes that Jax himself has been writing, and he burns them all. Which, to me, that was actually very surprising that he did. That Jax burns everything, even his father's manuscript, which I didn't really like the fact that he did burn his dad's manuscript, because even though a lot of things in this episode were tied up, the thing that wasn't tied up was that Jax never found out about Gemma's role in his father's death. He never found out about what her role was, and to me, that was a bit of a disappointment. But I think what they were trying to go for was Jack didn't care anymore. Or like Jack didn't care, or he already knew, or he found out off screen, but it's something like it was like when he was burning it, when he was burning everything, I think it was two things for me anyway. One, he was letting go. Just letting everything go, like he knows he's a goner, and he was just burning everything. He's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. This is it, and this all has to go. And I think the second point with him burning it was so his sons, his own boys, Abel and Thomas, will have not really remembrance of him, but will have no, how did he explain it? Basically, Jax tells Nero that I don't want my boys to follow me, and I am a killer, I am a criminal, and I want my boys to hate me. I don't want my boys to follow in my footsteps. So he's basically burning the manuscript and pictures, so he didn't want his boys to think of, in a way, not think anything good of him, because he doesn't want them to follow in his footsteps. So to me, that was kind of a heartbreaking point that he was making and what he wanted, but at the same time, you can see why. So like it was no secret. I think even Kurt Sutter, I think it was very early on, Kurt Sutter said that Jax was not going to live the series, was not going to make the series out alive. I think he said that like in season 3 or season 2. I think he was saying like it's pretty obvious Jax is dead, man. And he was Kurt Sutter was very vocal about it. He just said it's just how I get there. And so, and I think that with this episode, I remember hearing Kurt Sutter saying he had the ending of the show in his head for a number of years. And even though this episode wasn't the best, I do believe this is Kurt Sutter's vision. And I have to applaud him for making the show he wanted and having the ending that he wanted. And if you think about it, this episode references a lot of the past seasons. There's a lot of callbacks. There's a lot of not really callbacks through characters, but callbacks through shots, which I'll get to in a moment. But so yes, like this episode is just fully Jax just trying to set everything up, because he knows he's dead at the end of the day. So we're basically just like the little camera following Jax around, hell, you can pretty much say like it would be like it's kind of like we're a little found footage thing, which is like following Jax, we're like hiding in the bushes and Jax is doing some shit. My cat's at the door. But yeah, so I have to say my favorite shot in this episode was, and part of my favorite moment in this episode was the Mayhem boat scene. The Mayhem boat scene with Chibs and the club, and like Chibs trying to hold it together, and the line that how Tommy Flanagan delivered, because earlier on, Jax tells him, like, we don't hear it, but he tells Chibs, this is going to be a Mayhem boat on me. And you have to make sure that the rest of the club members, like the rest of our brothers, are going to vote the right way for what's best for the club. If pretty much best for the club is Jack's going to say, and the best for the club is if I die. So, in this episode, because this episode ends with Chip, like the series ends, I guess, with Chibs becoming president. And that's actually a point I want to make, that's like, throughout this episode, Chibs, before he even gets the patch, is taking charge. And it shows in this scene where he is doing the mayhem vote with the rest of the club. And when he says the line, vote for all in favor for Jackson Tuller to meet Mr. Mayhem. And the way he says that line sent chills down my spine. And not rhyme, but like it sent chills through my body. And God damn it. But because he was acting like a really strong leader, Chips, and then right when he says all in favor, and he cracks. He lets out a little sob, gulps, but then composes himself, and he finishes that line. And the whole club members saying, very solemnly, they're saying yes, because they know they have to, and it's Jax's wish. So, and then like, you know, Tommy Flanagan is Chips grabbing the gavel and just very solemnly doing the little final, like doing a little final hit with the gavel to make the vote and to make the decision. Well, final. He slides it over, and the shot ends with Jax's empty chair. The camera pulling and showing the insignia of the Reaper on the table. To me, that was my favorite shot. I don't know why, but to me, that was the best shot in this episode. It was my favorite. So my cat's really distracted me. One moment. Ugh. There we go. God damn. Alright, little fucking bastard. Sorry about that, guys. But, so yeah, it's like that shot of Jax's empty chair with the camera panning back and revealing the whole Reaper mark on the table. I thought just that shot spoke so many volumes to me, and I think to the audience and where this episode was going. I heard a lot of people say that this episode was very predictable, which I think it has something I could bring up is that yes, it is predictable, but it doesn't really ruin the episode for me because I don't like it is predictable, it is very quiet, it's not one of the best episodes, but I don't really see another way how this show could end. I think this hit the right points, and everything you thought was going to happen pretty much happened. You know, like, people thought Jax was going to kill himself. He did. Or he does. People always thought that Nero was going to take the kids with Wendy. And he does. They go try to Nero's farm. I think that's very self-explanatory. But I'm happy that Nero lived the show. I'm really happy for that. The one thing that really surprised me was that Tig actually lived. That's one thing I'm very surprised was Chib. Not only did Tig live the whole show, but he becomes the vice president to Chibs, which was outrageous. Like blew my mind. But I guess you can't really choose anyone else because now Chibs and Tig are the only original members from the very start of the show. So just let that sink in for a minute. Tig and Chibs are the only original members left. From the very start of the show till now, they're the only members left. So basically, all of our main characters have died. Except for Tig and Chibs. Like, when you wrap your head around that, you can't help just be like, wow. You just realize how many people we lost in the show and how many people died. And like, I know some people may be a little confused by it, say, well, Happy was in the first season. Happy was, but he was a nomad. I don't think Happy was fully patched over until, I may be wrong, but I think season 3? I think I have to rewatch it, but I think Happy didn't become a full member until season 3, I think. Because I think season 1, season 2, he was just a nomad and their helper kind of thing. And like, one thing I do want to say, it's like, the deaths of Karofsky and August Marks, because, they do die in this episode. I thought that was very, in a way, I felt their deaths was kind of rushed. I did like Karofsky's death. I did, because I didn't, I felt it was rushed. I didn't really mind it. Jax comes in, not saying a word, pulls out his gun, bam, shoots Brodsky in the head, kills the rat. Shoots him in the head, goes off. But in a way, for some reason, I kind of feel that I think I would like the ending better of August Marks, instead of August Marks being killed on the courthouse steps, which I'll get to in a moment. But for some reason, I kind of feel that if the show ended with August Marks in prison, I wouldn't actually mind that. Or, because he's not in power anymore, and I always felt that after he was arrested, that whole plot of him, I think that was just, I just felt it was done with. So it didn't really affect me much when August Marks died. I just would have liked it if he spent the season finale in prison. But like, the scene where he gets killed on the courthouse steps, before that, Jax goes through the back and he meets the homeless woman again. Where it raises more questions of who the homeless woman is, but at the same time it kind of confirms it, which I thought was very clever, was that Jax just turns around, just looks at her, he smiles, and he says, okay, who are you? Like, flat out says, who are you? And, the homeless woman just smiles at him, takes the blanket off of herself, and it says, it's time. Exactly. Says it's time, gives him the blanket, walks away. I know, Sly, it was awesome. Really, buddy? God damn, the cat doesn't know what he wants. And then you also notice that, which is like, there's a lot of religious symbolism in this episode, especially with the homeless woman, and this moment with the homeless woman, because when you see what she's eating, she's drinking wine, and she's eating bread. Which was, I think, a symbolism for the Last Supper of Christ. And then, Jax is on the courthouse steps when August Marks comes out. Makes it look like he's homeless with a blanket, but it kind of makes him look like he's the Reaper, which I thought was really cool. You know, Jax just gets all badass, just pulls out his gun, BAM! Shoots. I know, so it was fucking awesome. So sad the show is gone too. He's so heartbroken, he's walking away from me. Little bastard. But, what is it, buddy? Come here. Come here, buddy. He's like, pay attention to me, damn you. Ow! Bastard. Hit my knee. He's like, fuck you! But, sorry, my cat is really distracting me. But, it was so cool because the blanket made him look like the Reaper, and just him just coming up all badass, you know, pulls out his gun, boom, 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 loads him up in August Mark's chest, kills his lieutenant, his lawyer, and I gotta say it was awesome. My other favorite scene is him saying goodbye to the club, and you know, Happy breaks down and says goodbye to every single one of them. You know, one thing I have to laugh at was when it made it look like that. Chips is going to kill Jax. He had to, and then because Chips is like, hell no, and he shoots Happy in the arm. I love Happy's reaction. It's just shot in the arm, just ow. Just stone faces, grabs his arm, he's like, ow. And you know, they let Jack go. And Jack's final words to them is, I got this. Which was, you know, of course, a reference to Opie, where Opie died. And I know a lot of people I know that choked a lot of people up. It did to me anyway. I was like, fuck, man, god damn it. I was a goddamn piece of shit. You motherfucker. Damn you, Chris Sutter. Fucking asshole. But, and so Jax rides off. He goes to his dad's, memorial, in a way. And then he's telling his dad, you know, a good man, being a good father and being a good outlaw just doesn't mix. Which, I love that line. But then, when he notices that a cop has come after him, Jax says the final line of the series, that I think it was the final line, I think it's also the final line that Jax says, I think it's also the final line of the series, is the beginning of the manuscript before the first chapter, was, my boys will never know this life of chaos. And he sits there, starts his Harley up, he doesn't have his helmet on, he's smoking a cigarette, you know, and he shoots a few bullets at the cop. He doesn't hit him, and they're poor shots. He's not trying to kill him. And starts off just Jax riding off. And the shots of Jack on the motorcycle is very reminiscent of the very first episode, where he's riding, the cigarette in his mouth, and the wind blowing through his hair, no helmet on, you know, he's just going. And there's crows following him, which I do believe, because I'm a cheesy thinker. I believe, because there were 7 crows, right? 7 crows following him. I do believe the crows represent the spirits of the Sam Crow members who died during the series run. I know that's really cheesy, but I would like to think that. Because I think I think it would just make sense, and to me anyway, I just think it's cool. Um, seriously, Sly. God damn. The cat is never happy. I'm telling you right now. Cat is grumpy bitch. I love him anyway. But and then like as the final shot is Jax, he's at peace. Cops are chasing him, and he sees the semi truck coming, and he just lets his arms out, just pulls his arms out like this, and allows himself to glide into the other lane. We don't see the crash, but we know what happens. And the very final shot of the episode is crows on the side of the road eating bread. Just like the first shot of the first episode. And, you hear the crash, like that. Then you just see blood just roll onto the screen. You see blood rolling onto the screen, going to the bread and the crows, cuts to black. I thought that was a good final, and Jax went out on his own and everything. I know why some people would say this episode wasn't what they expected, but I liked it. I thought it was a good final to one of my favorite shows of all time, and I'm really going to miss this show. I really am. So this is it for this episode. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on the series finale if you watched it. And after this episode, I'm going to make 2 more videos on Sons of Anarchy. One is going to be about the last season itself. One's going to just a review of the last season and my thoughts. And then the second video of Sons of Anarchy I'm going to do is my retrospective of the entire show. So these are my thoughts on the final episode. I liked it, and I'll let you hear you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.